داخل Zevahim Daf Amur Aleph 8 lines down. Amarava Amura Banan Betama. Hachamim said that the item that's mixed, you go to flavor. Amura Banan Berubani also mentioned majority. V'amura Banan Behazuta. And the third type of way to look at it is by what it looks like. So when does each one apply? Min b'she'en mino b'tama. If you're mixing one thing with something else, not the same type, and you go by flavor. Min b'mino b'ruba. If you go with something with that, it is the same type. You go by majority. Hechat ikr hazuta b'mar'eh. When there's a change in appearance, and it's necessary to have appearance, like mikveh water, for example. B'mar'eh, that's when you go by appearance. Upligat b'lazar yigari zugan sebatat amar b'lazar. Kishem she'en mitzvot b'latot zuzu, just like a mitzvah can't nullify one another. Kach en yusrim b'latin zuzu, so too an isur cannot nullify its other, like we said earlier. They only apply to when you have mutar and asur together, not asur and asur. Man shemat ledamar in mitzvot mevatlin zu zu. Who did you hear say that the mitzvot don't nullify each other? Hillel is according to the Tanakh. It says, "Amru alav zaken." It's sevar hil zaken shaya korachan v'adahat v'achlan. This should sound familiar. He used to make the sandwich. Now people always think it's referring to the sandwich of korech, but back then there was the meat of the Korban Pesach, the masa, and the maror. And you eat it in one shot. Mishum shnamar, because the pasuk says, "Al ma'asot umrorim yochiluhu." So we see that you could mix it together without nullifying each other. Ramadan. Harsan shel zav v'zvat. If you have a piece of tameh, shard of copper of pottery from the zav or zavaz urine, tam rishon v'shnei tameh. It was washed 1 and 2 times, it's still tameh. Shishit tahor, after 3 times it's tahor. But when does that apply? When you put water inside, if you wash it 3 times. If you did not put water, but rather used tahor urine, after you it's still tamei after 10 times. Even urine 3 times is tahor. Where did you hear that something with not the same type did not become batel? According to Bida, that's why it is washed after 3 times. If a flax that Anida spun, and when she spins it, she uses her saliva, which makes it tameh. The one who moves it is tahor. But if the saliva was still moist, then the person who moves it is tameh because he's moving wet tameh liquid. Remember, it says, even if you moisten it into water, it also tameh. Why? Because since the spittle of our mouth, I feel too bad even a lot of times because when you moisten it and you wash it, the saliva that's inside comes out. So we see from here that even if you're washing it, it still transforms. It takes take up the saliva that's tameh. Doesn't become batel. The Gemara says, "Shani rov the it's different because it goes deep inside and doesn't easily become batel. It doesn't easily leave." Okay. If the bloods became mixed, the milk blood, yishafech la'amai, you should pour it into the canal that has takes the sewer out of the mikdash. Where it says, what's the machloket between that and the case of the blood? And also the other says that the blood stays kasher unless there's too much bad blood. Where it says the Marabi Yazid, because you when it make a gezerah, decrees in the Beit HaMikdash. The more so far goes in, Hamim say you do make a decree, and therefore you have to throw out the blood even if it's not nullified. But more so far goes in Liza holds no such thing as that. You don't make it decrees, and therefore it's kasher. There is gzera. So what's machlok based off of? Machlok whether or not the draining blood, which is not the non-life blood, the blood that came out after the life spurts after the slaughter, if is it common to have more than that than the life blood? More so shkiach. The Tanakh holds more, and therefore you need to make a decree. More so shkiach, and there's no not much more, and therefore not necessary. Bishlam Rabba makes this with the Rabba. That's why the Mishnah said first that if he makes this, you could pour it out. That means you're throwing out the draining blood. According to the Zito holds that there's no point. That means Zito let them combine and teach the same halakha together. And kasha to kasha. Why? Because the Mishnah could have mentioned both halachot together. If kasher blood became mixed pasul blood, or bad blood or draining blood, it should be thrown out instead of making it two separate cases. Gemara has no Mishnah. Dam timimim bedam ba'almim. The blood of a non-mum animal, a normal animal, mixed with the blood of a mum animal. Yeshurech lama, you pour it into the canal. Kos because you have a cup of blood that became mixed with another type of cup of blood. Isn't it says in Kara, of course, you already applied one blood. You could close it, you could bring the rest of them, you can assume the non-kosher one with the non-good one was good, withdrawn. But I remember him say, I feel even if you brought all of them except for one, you should have that last one, you chalk it, you don't assume it's good. Tanitanin lamata, the bloods I put below the red line of the mpliach. Shouldn't have been tin lamala mix the bloods I put on top of it. It's in the mala. You should put all the bloods on top. You cannot keep in mind that I ever do the one that's supposed to be below as if it's water and doesn't do anything to the top ones. The asurvey tin lamata. Then you should go to the bottom one below the red line. You should pour it all into the canal to be chucked. But if he did not ask and he just applied it without asking, then it's kasher. And it's in the blood they need to do one shot. Mix with other bloods that you do with one application. You know, Tunuban Tanakh, put it in one shot. Matan Arba, for the blood, we need four applications. Mix the Matan Arba with other bloods, we need four. Tunuban Matan Arba, put on four, and you're good. Matan Arba, blood of four, Matan Achad, Gamesh is one. The Bezir says, in Tunuban Matan Arba, do four. Yeshomar, Tunuban Matan, do one. Amal Bezer, Yeshua, how can you say they do one? How do you al tigad? You're being already transgressing the fact that you can't do less than when the Torah says. Where I said, then he answers Mother Yeshua, I do over about to see. Yeah, but if you do four instead of one, you're transgressing the issur of doing more, adding. Where I said, Amar Be'ezer, Lo Neymar about to see like a shoe asmo. The only time Torah says don't add more is when you have something that's by itself, meaning you can't do four to something that's for sure one. Over here it's mixed. Amar Be'Yeshua, which says Lo Neymar al Dal Tegra like a shoe asmo. Same thing also with reducing. Other issue, which says also, when you do more than one, you're over and adding. Because you're actively doing more. However, if you're not doing four, you're only doing one out of four, that's not being actively over. You are you're passively being over and on avera, you're not actively doing it. That's why it's better to do that versus being over physically by adding.